the moment, I do want to note that our ether this month was an issue on dentistry education, science, technology. I was assisted by Jack Katie for Izette, who's here today. So if you have any initial questions about the ether, feel free to go ahead and that can be part of your discussion. Of course, reports of COVID or comments about COVID are welcome and follow up to all our previous discussions. But next week, on Saturday here on our net, will be pretty much dedicated to follow up on that issue. We'll go into it extensively. And I'm planning on talking on Saturday more about the general dentistry practical side, the technology and practice, when to apply it, who applies it, um, how it fits in with the general scope of one's practice, the ethical questions that it arises as expensive technology is present. Does the economy of scale come to play where you have to produce so much with that equipment that you start doing procedures that can be done in the best interest of the patient with traditional methods? I mean, let it drop on here. Okay, I've checked in Hilton PY2 BBQ, but I see you're online Hilton here from the instant message on NetLogger. So on Saturday, next Saturday, we'll focus on that, not necessarily with science so much, because the continuing education aspects will follow up on that journal will be on Sunday with Jack's help. We'll hear it from the researcher side, we'll hear it from the science side, and we'll see if we can't get a few other Marco members to come on during the net from other specialties. Jack's a periodontalist and a researcher, so that'd be nice to hear from an endodontist or an oral surgeon. I think from a standpoint of the technology and science, uh, heavily periodontics, heavy contributor towards that. So Jack's well suited to be a presenter. That being said, are there any stations that I have not already checked in on NetLogger that would like to check in at this time? Please go ahead and make your calls to AA4SL. Okay, this is N5RTF. Good morning, Chet. I have to be checked in on 5RTF. Any other stations that would like to do a check-in for the Medical Amateur Radio Council DVNet? You don't have to be a Marco member. You can be a member of the public. Anyone that's interested, as long as you're ham and you're interested in medical topics, because your questions are welcome and your comments are welcome. So feel free to listen. But of course, if you'd like to participate, go ahead and check in, and we'll act accordingly, either putting you on the roundtable discussion list or not, if that's per your request. AA4FO, go ahead. Okay, well, good morning to everyone. We have a message from Hilton here, courtesy of the IM on NetLogger, that he's on his way to the beach. He is doing our YouTube transmission. That's working well. We'll try to check in a while. We have to be very understanding that Hilton lives in the southern hemisphere, so his this is the summertime here, while we have to deal with the cold. So we enjoy it very much down on the beaches of Brazil, and we will similarly do that to you when June comes around and you're cold and we're at the beach. So it will be fair play there, Hilton. Have a great day. We'll talk to you later. This is AA4FL. Any other stations for a check-in, go ahead and make your call. Well, thank you. Again, today is just some follow-up discussions of the ether preliminary-wise. We'll have that as the main focus for the two nets next weekend. Warren has already given approval for the grand rounds to discuss the dentistry topic next Sunday with me as net control for my home QTH here in Hawthorne, Florida. But we're going to go ahead and start the roundtable today. And whatever you'd like to discuss. Let's hear from you and share and have a little coffee and have a wonderful morning fellowship. And I know I'm Al Howard. I'm going to turn the mic over to you.
Good morning again, Jay, and everybody on the net. For Newton's edification, it's about minus 19 C in Chicago when I woke up this morning, or 2 below Fahrenheit. I think it's warmed up a little bit now. We dodged all the big weather in my part of the area. It was really crazy. The gradient was right across the Chicago area. So we got, I don't know, maybe 3 inches just just west and north of us, got barely a dusting, and there were places in the teens just south of us. It was a really crazy demarcation on that storm last weekend. Or I guess it was last weekend, during the earlier part of the week. As far as COVID in Illinois, they're pretty gleeful. Everything seems to be improving. The numbers that they are so gleeful about are still really high.
I have a dropout on Howard, so we'll give it another minute here, and then we'll hear from Howard again. Let me just take a break here from transmission. Thank you, Andy, for confirming that you lost his transmission again. And I am. Oh no, are you copying us, Howard? Go ahead. Okay, well, hopefully Howard will be back with us shortly. Jerry, N4TSC, AA4FL. Looking forward to hearing what you had to say. I understand not all of it is good news, but it's important news. Go ahead.
Okay, AA4FL in the group. This is N4TSC. Well, first of all, since someone mentioned the temperature in Chicago, I report it finally looks like we're through the short episode of cold weather, even South Florida, and currently it's 80 degrees. So that's the good news. And as far as the other news, obviously this is a small sample size, but I can report that of 4 close friends, 3 of them succumbed to COVID after 2 vaccinations. One who had 3 vaccinations picked it up on a trip to visit family in Costa Rica. Since he got it at the airport, came back, and he's now doing well. Stand by one. And the sad story of the third friend in orthopedist in practice here in South Florida, a colleague of mine from medical school, and also a treating physician for my family. Spoke with him on Saturday afternoon, and he said that he had gotten over his COVID and was back at practice for a week, was having problems dealing with it. He felt terrible. And we said, well, we hope that you can join us tomorrow for our get-together. And he said, no, his internist suggested that he not participate because he had developed, and I don't know whether this is independent or a consequence of COVID, orthostatic hypotension. Following day, just about 24 hours later, we got a call saying that he had found dead that morning. So I'm not sure whether there's a direct correlation, but there is a possibility that any underlying illnesses that you have are exacerbated significantly. And it would be best to have the full complement of vaccinations to try to protect against your demise. That's the story from this end. A4FL and 4TSC.
And for TSC, AA, 4FL, we're sorry to hear about the loss of your friends and the illnesses of others. Sorry to hear that. I think that's a common thread in humanity here is that most of us know someone, even if they're not very close to us, and a family member. But with 900,000 Americans having passed away, for those rest of us outside the U.S., similar percentages for many countries. That's a lot of loss of humanity. And thank you for mentioning the morbidities, the comorbidities, and the factors. You hear so much of people talking about that they didn't die of COVID, they died of the other medical issues they had. But at the end of the day, if they didn't have the extra stress on their body of the infection, they wouldn't have passed away prematurely in many cases, many years prematurely than what would have been otherwise for that particular manageable medical condition. Let me let it drop. This is AA of the Medical Amateur Radio Council. Are there any other check-ins here, individuals that haven't checked in yet? So go ahead and make your call. Okay, none heard. Again, you don't have to be a Marco member to participate. Internet, you're welcome to listen. But again, we welcome participants. Anyone that's interested in health and health-related fields is welcome to check in. KD4, is that Jack? I hope the mic's sounding a little better. Go ahead. Yeah, Jay, I adjusted it a little bit here, and hopefully I'm not quite so hot. If you'd let me know, I'd appreciate it. Without being the most technical of people, it doesn't sound that way, but I don't know what else is getting into your mic. But there's some noise there. Well, it sounds like a fan. It is a space heater. But if I don't have it on, I'll get real cold. And I apologize for that. There's nothing I can do about it. My office is in the basement, and I'm working out a few heating issues down here this winter. When we had this basement renovated 20 years ago and turned into an area that was living space, the fellow that did the work for us advised us to put in electric baseboard heats, two independently adjustable ones. Well, they don't really quite do the job, and the insulation is not what it should be. So I've had to bring a little space heater down here. The space heater I have, unfortunately, is noisy, and that's probably the fan noise you're hearing. And I apologize for that. On to other things. Jerry, terribly sorry to hear about your colleagues there. That is very distressing. It brings to mind an observation that Susie has been tracking because they do see it even at pediatrics. Patients with inflammatory conditions in particular do suffer exacerbations of those, and frequently those are the reason that people get quite ill afterwards, even though they've shook the infection. Their immune system is all juiced up, and autoimmune problems like RA can get exacerbated. I have a friend who, amateur radio friend actually, who is now having middle ear problems, and he's really struggling with his balance. He can do certain things, but when he turns around, everything goes haywire on him. And so he has to be very careful about his outdoor and moving activities. My the lady that does my haircuts has got RA, and that was unfortunately exacerbated as well. So we're seeing that all the way around. I think Jerry's advice about getting vaccinated and adding to that, just watch the masking, watch the self-isolation, do all the other things you're supposed to do to stay clean, and you'll do what you can do. Hopefully somebody who's not so careful will get into your space and create an issue, and that gets down to what really is the biggest problem right now. Is won't do it, can't do it, don't want to do it, people that insist on spreading. Enough of that. Anyway, Jay, it was a lot of fun. I hope you got some of my revisions and post-analysis stuff. I did post another article or two that might be interesting to anybody who wants to do extensive reading, and it should be in that same Dropbox that's referenced in Ether. Jay, I'll turn it back to you. Katie Isaac. Well, thank you, Jack. And I did notice that some of the editorial changes I had already caught, so I had done a read through that morning and just must have submitted it right before hearing from you. Thank you for being a co-editor and contributor on this issue either. Don't know if you heard the discussion about next weekend, but the Grand Rounds are going to focus on the science, and hope that you'll lead that portion of the discussion. We certainly can circulate information and ask for questions ahead of time. One suggestion or thought for the Grand Rounds next week. Let me let it drop and discuss this in detail. One discussion is to bring in some of the tools that we have here, and perhaps also have questions coming by email, but even more importantly, distribute the topic ahead of time and give members an opportunity to submit questions for the speakers to answer in advance, since it's an HFnet where not everyone may be able to hear each other all at the same time. Knowing the questions ahead of time would give those that want to listen on the receivers, on the running internet-based receivers that Chip is going to supply, will be able to hear net control. And as they hear net control and they hear the presentations, Chip can pick one where he hears Jack, KD4IZ, or AA4FL well, and I think he's situated to pick up both of us, so picking the correct software-defined radio receiver on line one, everybody will be able to hear the answers to the questions when they submitted ahead of time. Let me let it drop them. And on Saturday, the preceding day, next Saturday, before we just follow up on the dentistry topic, we're going to focus quite a bit on more of the general dentistry applications and office process. And one particular concern that I've had, being a small town practitioner and seeing a lot of the technologies applied by big clinics and even by individuals, doesn't matter what the source is, the technology being applied in ways where traditional methods could have done the same or just as good clinical results, but the choices were made because the equipment was so costly that there were so many units of production of pictures there was CAD/CAM equipment that had to be produced that had an effect on the ethics and the clinical decision making of the practitioners. So that's one area I wanted to talk about here on the ethical and practical side of having the equipment in General Dentist office for Saturday, whereas Sunday will be the CME and the more of the actual science side. Katie, for Isaac Jack, does that seem to make sense to you? Go ahead.
Yeah, both do, and I'm certainly okay next weekend. It looks that I'll be able to deal with the other possible conflict without any problem. It looked like during the club meeting this morning, we had enough takers to run the VE session that I don't need to be there. So that makes me feel better. Other things we do. Having the questions ahead of time will help tremendously. It'll also keep us on topic. It's tough with a short 1 hour whatever segment to cover everything. So I think if folks have specific questions they want addressed, we can do it. Technical side, yeah, I'm glad I have the beam. I can turn things so Chip can hear, and that way I don't need to have a live stream from this end. I'm having some kind of a computer glitch this morning that took a while to figure out, and I finally wound up just shutting everything down, rebooting. So it's not always a smooth operation at this end. And I think with the age and the amount of junk that I've accumulated on this computer in terms of extraneous stuff, it's probably not a bad idea not to rely on that. So if Chip can hear me on HF, that'll be real good. I normally get into Louisiana and Texas pretty good on 20 meters. So that shouldn't be an issue. I got Jay. Go ahead. KA4FL, the Quadnet Digital Voice Array Net for Marco. And with KD4 Isaac Jack and AA4FL discussing next week's subject material. So having the Ether issue be very extensively hypertext linked can make for a confusing read when you see all these underlined words. And I guess it's generational to a point, but it may be heavy-handed on parents. I apologize for that. But it'll take a few weeks for individuals to look through, and we can sort of stoke that interest with some Google listserv comments during the week, so individuals know that the articles are there, and they can look for them and get Jack's updated folder, and then formulate the questions. Since the material is already up front, they don't have to wait for the material to be presented on the Sunday net to actually ask the questions. So it's a hybrid approach. And may take some getting used to, but hopefully this will be an enhancement, and perhaps Chip over time, as his committee looks at the grand rounds, can apply some of these explorations that we're attempting and find the good practices, the best practices for running the grand rounds. Let me let it drop on. Next on our check-in list is Andy, WJAB. I'm going to turn the mic to you, Andy.
Well, good morning, everybody on the net. Very adventurous last 2.5 days. So we were right on the ice and snow line. You would have thought we were praying for the ice to quit, and it started snowing, and then 20, 30 minutes later, it started icing again. So, ended up, I had about an inch and a quarter of ice on all my outside surfaces, and about 4 inches of snow. So, I was able to clear my driveway off. Can't get the ice up without going out and chipping it. I just decided we'll drive on the ice until it melts. So, anyhow, I did read your article, Jay and Jack. It was very, very interesting. Uh, my perspective on the dental issue is personal because I am a victim of what's called PVL, it's Papa Victor Lima, short for progressive verrucous leukoplakia. And I've had more than 30 surgeries for that, 4 of which were major. The majority of those were done by a single oral surgeon here in the Columbus area. And but if it wasn't for him, he actually sent me to an oral pathologist named Carl Allen. And he's the only one who really knew what it was. And biopsies actually read the slides and got me going in the right direction. I also have other complications from the multiple surgeries, some problems with scarring in my mouth or trismus, and have an oral prosthodontist who helps with that because nobody here in town would do it. I have Cleveland who did it, but he died at age 48 after a birth diverticulum and went into hepatic renal failure. So I moved down to Cincinnati, and I met Robert Faulkner down there who's been working with me with that. So it's a very informative article. Look forward to hearing it. I don't know for sure I'll be able to hear much on HF. I'm not 100% sure it'll be available. It should be available next Saturday, though. So, good to hear everybody on that. Hope everybody's staying warm, and hopefully the storm is gone from everywhere in the eastern U.S. After that, from WJAD.
Well, thank you, Andy. If you have any particular questions in regard to that or comments, since you may not be able to transmit on HF fully, certainly you can listen on the live stream. It sounds like you have been through dental situations that required numerous specialists. I think dentists, they need to know when to refer, how to refer, who to refer to, have to have a team. I did a continuing education course the other day for my relicensure where I talked about risk management and the responsibility of not only referring, but referring to qualified individuals that's appropriate for the clinical situation that you need to at least identify when you need to ask for help. But when you do, you also have to ask, know enough to ask for the right person. Jack had a question for you, Andy. If you see it on the network, I'm going to ask you to repeat that. Go ahead, WJAB.
Okay, that is progressive verrucous leukoplakia, and I'm typing it out for Jack on the instant messenger. It basically explains to those who have not been around it, those who are in the straight medical field, when you have a situation, a female who has changes in her cervical pathology, and they go from mild dysplasia to moderate dysplasia to severe dysplasia, and eventually become carcinoma in situ, etc. It's a similar progression, and fortunately, the oral pathologist can pretty much tell by looking at it. Of course, they verify at least once a year with actual biopsies and insulin if anything comes up. But that's what happened. I would basically go through those evaluations when it got bad enough that they thought it was ready to change to stage 1 squamous. They would go ahead and do a laser ablation of my entire mouth. Talk about a painful experience, not good. But anyhow, that's kind of explains what the disease process is. Thank you, Jay, from WJB.
Thank you for the explanation, Andy. This is AA4FL Net Control for the Medical Amateur Radio Council TVNet, and I know we're getting a little technical here for those of you that are not dentists and physicians, but it's interesting for everyone to note that the progression of dental disease from a pathology standpoint, and oral pathologists and pathologists, there's a lot of parallelisms and similarity, and that stomatology as a science of the mouth versus the old dentistry or the art of doing dentistry as a fill, drill, and mill. There's a change undergoing, which was highlighted in this particular ether towards this science-based profession and not just mechanics of the mouth. So, and thank you for bringing up a very interesting topic that I wasn't aware of myself, and I'm glad you got help to deal with that, Andy. And thank you for being here today. PBQ is with us today, and he's recording on YouTube. But again, he's not available yet. We'll check with him later. He would have been next on the check-in list. N5RTF, Chip. Good morning. How about you taking the mic?
Yeah, literally this morning. I'm on D-Star because I'm having some problems with my Yaesu handheld. Today is bead pickup day in New Orleans. I'm going to have to leave probably early and go meet somebody downstairs and sort through some Mardi Gras beads and divide them up between what we're going to keep and what Terry substitute rider is going to take. I know all the rest of y'all have to do the same thing today. So if I drop out, that's the reason. N5RTF.
N5RTF. Just out of general interest, could you describe to the group the schedule, date arrangements for different aspects of Mardi Gras? Go ahead.
By the way, what I'm saying here is not going to be recorded because I have to turn my speaker off or I get an echo. So this part is not going to be in the recording, and you might want to mention that when you come back on. Mardi Gras is the season leading up to Lent. Predominantly Catholic city, Lent is recognized by fasting, praying, living a very simple life. But leading up to that, people want to party as long as they can. And so that Tuesday, which is the day before Ash Wednesday, is an all-out party. And it's gradually back all the way up to 12th night, which is the Epiphany, which is the official beginning of Mardi Gras season. And the parades have already started. Wait, one. So now we have parades nearly every night all the way leading up to the let's see, what is it this year? March. I have to look and see. I think it's around March the 1st, which is fairly late. It can be anywhere from around February the 4th to about March the 6th. Based on the moon and how Easter is calculated in the Western calendar. But it's hot and heavy right now. We do have some restrictions because of COVID, and also our police department has been underfunded, and we don't have enough police, so the parade routes have all been shortened this year. You can imagine people are pretty angry about that. In addition, that bunches people up into a smaller area and probably is going to show a spike in COVID after a week or two. So that's a thumbnail sketch of Mardi Gras. It's you can imagine it's very, very complex, lots of money. It's a real good example of a gift culture. where other cities you might have social page in the newspaper, all of the social activities, the debutantes, everything in New Orleans centers around Mardi Gras and 5RTF.
AA4FL Friday. Well, Chip, it sounds like a fascinating time of year, and I know you look forward to it, like, and are participatory in some of the events from your own crew. So, what crew do you belong to, and how much time have you spent preparing and participating? Over.
Well, I personally rode once with the crew of Sparta. Um, I also rode as a Duke twice in Terry's crew of Iris. She's no longer a member of that crew, but at one time she rode in both Iris and Muses. She's still a member of Muses, which is the predominant women's crew in the city, and I did mostly a supporting role for her. It takes at least two people to get somebody ready, loaded up, all of the details that are involved in trying to ride a float. It's an enormous undertaking and fairly expensive in 5RTF.
AA4FL. And as Chip mentioned when he was talking and describing, it's not going to show up on the live stream, so it dropped out. That's on the Marco audio server, and that's the reason why. If you're interested in hearing Chip's comments later, you can come back and catch those on the YouTube recording of PY2BBQ, or you can listen to that in real time as well. As Chip's explaining some aspects of Mardi Gras that if you don't live in Albany and be involved in it, you probably wouldn't realize the complexity and the dedication that it takes to participate in these types of events. Chip, I say here in Florida, I have not made it to New Orleans for any of the Mardi Gras festivities. I've been to the Mobile one where they throw moon pies and hit you, because it just happened to coincide with being in town. But they have at Universal Studios Orlando a Mardi Gras parade, and I've gone for that. Since it's so close by from here, it's only 2 hours away. I'm sure it carries none of the flavor that it does in New Orleans. Hope to get there. But one time through the roundtable, are there any particular threads of discussion that you would like to propose? I will go ahead and take a list right now from those that are checked in. And if you haven't checked in, we'll also take new check-ins. This is AA4 Film Net Control, waiting for individuals that would like to offer some threads for follow-up discussion.
Hi.
Now that adult time is over with, I do have my grandchildren here with me today. Their parents ran off to Savannah and renewed their wedding vows on their 10th year anniversary. One of the oldest synagogues in the country in Savannah. Got to live stream that. We certainly did a Zoom for family yesterday, and that was nice to be able to participate. But I'm going to go from adult time to child time here and try to find some horse events here in the Ocala area. We have quite a bit of horse country here, only 30 minutes south, and some ARCA members also live in that area. And I know there's some horse competitions and demonstrations going on this weekend. 7-3 all. Y'all, see, Southerners here. And it's great talking to everyone, and look forward to seeing you guys next week. Have a healthy and enjoyable week. A4FL calling this session of the Marco DVNet on the much appreciated Quadnet Array to a close. 7-3. A4FL, 84, I think, still exact.